There's a reason I don't record these videos normally. Take 4, I think this is. Welcome to a Song of Ice and Fire RPG introduction video for my character Laenys Caladan. Or Laenys Caladan. Depends on the pronunciation what you use. For any of you who are unfamiliar with our A Song of Ice and Fire campaign, well, one, how did you find this video? That's what I'm quite curious about. Unless I've been recording more in the future. In that case, hello future. Or you're already a subscriber, which I don't know why you would be. But either way, if you don't know about the campaign, see links in the description for our introduction video, as well as the videos of, also the character videos of Grim's character, and of Jonas' character, and possibly Howdemers. Doesn't know if he's going to do a video yet. He might. So we'll see. Hopeful thinking. Anyway, I will just get on with this then. Also, minor disclaimer. I am not the most familiar with the Song of Ice and Fire universe. I have some familiarity with it. I may make mistakes every now and again, but I have not read the books, and I've only seen snippets of the TV show. Just putting it out there. So this is a portrait for my character, which, for anyone who knows about the universe, the platinum white hair and the purple eyes, very much showing of Valyrian heritage. As well, it was the idea of just destiny and the Valyrian heritage coming up is going to be a common theme for this character. Destiny taking hold of, well, his fate and him having to just react to it. The artwork is a modification of someone else's work I did in GIMP. The original for it I will try and post in the description to give credit where credit is due. But yes, Laenys or Laenys Caladan, depending if one uses the common or true Valyrian pronunciation. His goal is security. Security for himself and security for his family. Everything for him seems to have been unstable, unsafe, everything seems to want to go wrong. He himself was born, probably in this, his life was born, everything seemed fine to start with. And then his sister was born, killing his mother. Then a short time later, House Peak invaded. They won, kind of, and took his brother as a ward. Later, his sister, who his mother had given up her life for, had then been taken by Dornish raiders, leaving him really without pillars, especially when you consider his father became unstable and his, well, though it's not really a security issue, his uncle was very creepy, which did not help him. And what he wants, he wants to build up some security for both himself and his family. What drives him, though, his motivation, is duty. His brother is gone. His brother is not here. His brothers also seem to have betrayed them. He is the next son in line, then, to the house, and he feels this is his responsibility. He is the one who has to do this. He has to protect everyone, no matter the cost. Which is not an easy thing. It's a lot of burden to be put on his shoulders, but to him, the conviction to hold up tradition, to hold up honor, to hold up legacy, especially with such clear signs of the legacy in him, is his duty, and he will uphold it, or at least try. At his best, his virtue, he is charitable. His main redeeming trait is the fact that he wants to help others. He will go out of his way to give some of his money to the small folk, or donate leftover food from a feast to the peasants or to the servants to have. He will do his best to help people out, small folk or highborn, whatever. Really, in the end, everyone needs helping in his mind, just in different ways. However, when he's at his worst, his vice is his fear, his craven. For while some use it as a motivation, it holds him back, sometimes making it difficult for him to do things, nightmares, dark dreams, sometimes anxiety, just unnerving amounts, just not wanting to go forward, not able to do what he wants. And then at his true worst, he just closes up, locks himself away, and does not want to touch the world. For it is his vice, it holds him back, and he acknowledges it. He hates it, yet he cannot overcome it. You were never meant for this position, yet despite your fear, you fight to keep it. That is the tagline I created for him, as it summarizes the entire character concept very well. Someone who never felt they were right for this position, fighting for it, Because, well, they are. The table of contents, which Jonas thinks I'm overly achieving by doing because I've hyperlinked it. It's really not that special. And onto my backstory, of which I'm warning you now, there's going to be some grammatical errors or spelling errors which may make some of you cringe. I apologise. I probably haven't noticed them. If I notice them, I will update them in the future. You'll also find a link to this document in the description as well, because, might as well. Second son of House Caladan, Laenys is far from the ideal that a young lord should be. Age 15, at the height of 5 foot 5 inches, or 165 centimetres, this young man, once cheerful, is now ruled by a conflict of duty and fear. The burning cause being House Ashford and House Peak. Laenys' confusing life began 182 AC to Laenys, Tali, and Aeron Caladan. There was some immediate curiosity and prestige, though there are also rumours once Laenys was born. All the Caladans have some Valyrian blood in them. Valyrian? Yes, Valyrian blood in them, even if it was weak. His father even showed the platinum white hair since his youth. However, for Laenys, this showed far stronger. Because despite his mother's lack of Valyrian blood, quite a few rumours began to spread to neighbouring houses as his platinum white hair became clear, purple eyes. Some of the other houses speaking of dragon blood, like the Targaryens. Most of it was just idle rumours and gossip, but it did begin Laenys' feeling of isolation. He felt different. And he was. Well, in a sense. Everyone thought he was different, at least. For the first few years, he was a happy child. Almost from the moment he tried to be near his older brother Halen, whenever he could. He looked up to him. He was stronger, skilled, kind, even when things went wrong. Despite not getting much attention from his father, Laenys was content. All soon started to collapse the time his younger sister was born, killing his mother in the process. Laenys was only five at the time and did not understand the concept of death. He went constantly to pray that she would come back, yet she never did. Even this, however, was soon interrupted when House Peak invaded and his older brother was taken, leaving Laenys without the pillars he had formed around him, around his brother, and around his mother. He was alone. Laenys struggled to truly enjoy himself. He was lost, confused. The servants, the maester, even Desmond tried to guide him, yet it wasn't the same. Yet he hadn't given up. As soon as he learned to write, he wrote letters to send to his brother at House Peak, yet none of them were answered. Maybe 2 years later, things started to go downhill for Laenys. He was 7, nearing 8 at the time. A small tournament was being hosted by the Tyrells up at Highgarden. A few members of the house, including Laenys, went. There he was confronted by Gregor Ashford, second son of the Ashfords, a boy significantly taller and older, maybe 13 years of age, same age as his older brother Halen. Initially it was insults and minor bullying from a clearly frustrated individual. Each continued contact with him, however, at different events, meetings. It got worse. Eventually, during one meeting, late in Laenys' 10th year, he tried to stand up for himself against the much older Gregor, and the situation escalated, resulting in the older, much stronger individual easily beating and badly injuring him, especially when a small blade was drawn. Bleeding on the ground, with a wound deep in the left side of his neck, Laenys laid behind the stables till a servant had discovered what happened, and took him to the maester. It was a close call, and the cut was very close to a blood supply. Laenys had almost died, and unfortunately, despite testimony, there was no proof that Gregor had done it, and the accusation simply left the Ashfords, their relationship strained. Laenys almost died, and started wandering deep down the road of isolation and fear. For this was a significant moment to him. He himself had been confronted with the idea that he might have died, and he very much could have, if it wasn't for the expert work of maesters. He remained at the keep more than he did previously, locking himself in his quarters, studying, or playing one of the various instruments he'd either purchased, or used to be his mother's. While this taught him much about the past, he lost track of the world in the present. Yet he didn't want to know, unless it was a reply from his brother, that still after 4 years did not come. At age 11, he receives word that as his father returns from a trip that his younger sister is gone, making him the last of his father's children still around. This only built upon Laenys' fears. He felt alone. despite him having Everin, his younger cousin, by about a year, living around the keep. Everin was much like his brother, good with a sword, brave, kind. It didn't help. Though as much as he felt alone, he was thankful that there was someone around he could at least talk to. Only about 6 months after, while wandering around the keep's ground, there were some new additions being made to the keep. One such improvement was the southeastern tower, where a huge piece of rock fell from its peak. Laenys was directly in the path of such debris, and near destined to be seriously wounded or more likely killed. Yet, nearly at the last moment, he was pushed aside by the son of one of the servants. The boy had almost crushed himself. Almost. Those small pieces of rock scattered and injured him badly. Laenys had the maester treat him, paying for all such treatment himself. The boy had made a near full recovery, except for a few minor scars on his back. Since then the boy, by the name of Lucas, had become a close friend of Laenys. This had not aided his fear, yet at the same time it did teach him that he was not as alone as he thought. There were others to help him. This proved to be the case when Laenys started growing closer to Everin, Alaric's son. Or Alaric's son? I had to check the pronunciation he had. Eventually, his little sister returned. A Barosi woman arrived from her uncle in Bravos, and became, well, partially his bodyguard, also the tutor for his younger, furious sister. And Laenys began to see the world was actually capable of getting better. Not only that, but he realised everyone around him was just trying hard as he was sitting, trying to control his fears. He couldn't just hold out on the dream that maybe the same kind brother would return. Why would he? He hadn't answered a single letter. He became a knight and sword for the House Peak, and did not return despite being in need. He was old enough to. Far more than old enough. Laenys realised that to keep this family together, and its traditions and heritage alive, he needed to be more than just sit around. Even if he was afraid, and he was not born for this, his duty was to protect himself, his house, and the people who serve him. Sure, he might not be as good a fighter as his brother, not as strong, maybe less brave, or even a coward. But maybe it didn't matter. Just maybe he could take up the empty mantle and aid those around him. God damn it, my pronunciation stutter. I apologise now. Laenys, his skin is fine but pale, with a few natural blemishes. His only major marking being the huge bladed scar across the left side of his neck. His face is rounded, but his what? But with a strong chin. Wow. I had no idea. His ears lay back quite flat, his smooth platinum white hair covering them. Wow, so many spelling issues. His hair is mid-length, yet practical. His eyes convey a thoughtful and driven purpose, yet behind their deep purple hue. He dresses fine, but humble when it comes to his noble attire. Almost always with white and red, or black and white, matched with some of the house's main colourings. He stands at 5 foot 5 inches, and he is lively built but muscularly defined. Not large or tall, though both could be credited to his time locked up in his room, and his many years of just eating a lot less when under stress. His attire, while humble, conveys a message of status, yet while remaining practical. He feels no reason to cover his clothes in many expensive jewels or expensive trinkets. Instead, just enough to stand true as nobility. Personality-wise, Laenys is calm and thoughtful in most of his endeavours, rarely jumping into things without thinking them through. He is fooled by his adamant thoughts that he needs to do something if he wants to keep everyone around him safe. Despite this availing confidence, it can often be shaken, for in conflict, he is of course always held back by his own fears that perhaps maybe he can't protect himself, that he's inferior to his brother, inferior to the brother he aims to replace and succeed. He yearns to aid others, rarely asking for anything in return, with the exception of some company. He often feels isolated, with his father unstable, his uncle being rather creepy, his mother dead, and his little sister changed, while he's made new bonds with Everin, son of Alaric, Lucas, and Nima. He doesn't quite fill the hole in his heart left by the pains of the past. Whereas quite significant pains that just don't that won't just close up. His passion to protect others and his family has made him devout to protecting the family name. After all, it represents many he cares for, and without it, he'd most likely be unable to help others. Yet, of course, his fears are his weakness, for he must learn to control them and instead use them as a stepping stone to succeed. Alas, conquering it is not as easy as one would hope, striking him even when he wants to stand up for his ideals. God damn it. This is why I never record these monologues. Really, I don't talk that much. Or at least not as much as I'd like to. Character relationships, because if you know about the Song of Ice and Fire books, it has, in the intrigue section, dispositions towards characters. So I have some here to various characters, which my character may or may not have interactions with regularly. First one is Nima Ryan, Tina's character. A friendly disposition. Laenys met her only about a year ago. She has proven to be an ally thus far. Employed partially as a bodyguard for Laenys, she has his trust. In addition, he admires her courage quite a bit, the way she fights through her fears and channels them to succeed, a quality he hopes he might be able to learn as well one day. He also appreciates the work he does with Brienne. Mainly so, well, she is, well, perhaps her furious little sister won't be as furious anymore. Or so he hopes. Next one would be Desmond Caladan, Jonas's character. He's admirable with him. Desmond has always been a teacher and guide to Laenys, and while there is some family trust, he has never fully trusted Desmond. Possibly it's that the strange art he produces, perhaps it's just a frustration with the constant lectures he receives and the ploys to train despite Laenys' clear reservations. Sir Alaric Caladan, Haldimand's character. Sir Alaric has always been an influence around the keep. Since shortly after the incident with House Peak, there has been some appreciation with his teacher, but it's always just been that. They've never really spoken on a personal level or done much outside of training and service. Laenys does not dislike him. Laenys does dislike his more liberal tendencies when it comes to women. He's admirable with him. Brienne Caladan, Grimace character. The relationship with his younger sister since her return has been awkward. She has closed herself away and become very cold, and yet attempts to approach, he isn't sure how. She's changed a lot from what he remembers, which is quite disorientating. Except for her more roguish outlook, Laenys has no particular like or dislike for her. She's family, which helps, but she's very cold, making it difficult to approach. Indifferent, though he would prefer a better relationship. Which then moves us on to narrator characters. Aeron Caladan, Laenys' father. There's a divided opinion for him. On one hand, he's a child, he does respect him greatly, and all he's been through, yet he does see that he's not in his full state anymore. He has... Wow. He has lost quite a bit of Laenys' respect when Bree returned home and refusing to accept it. Yet, he remains his father, who he wants to help for as long as possible. On the other hand, again, his father just gives him this distant look when he's looking at Laenys, which in the end makes it hard to feel appreciative of his father, but he feels like he disappoints. That's why I don't like reading all this out. Weaponsmith Galt, narrator character, indifferent. The weaponsmith has faithfully served the Caladans, fitting Laenys' armour, making smaller weapons and teaching about his Valyrian steel sword. While he respects his craft and his pull for religion, he neither likes nor dislikes the man. Maester Cole, admirable. Maester Cole has always indulged Laenys' curiosities, aiding him in learning to speak what he knows about High Valyrian, teaching him about history, and listening to his music. He appreciates all the work he does for his father as well, at least as well as possible. Aeron Caladan, friendly. A very close friend, and of course the son of Sir Alaric. Only a year younger than himself, he seemed like a brother instead of a cousin. He's always been there to aid Laenys with his fears and training. Aeron seems more understanding than Alaric about the slower pace he needs. Equally, when it came to the more academic duties, where Aeron struggled, Laenys spent several hours in their rooms just tutoring him. The two have become quite close. Lucas the Servant, a low-born narrator character. Since the incident several years ago, the two have been close. He is a couple years younger, currently 13, Despite his status, the two have been close friends. Lucas still having hesitations about it, slipping in conversations to Milord, even after being told not to. He was given the duty of taking care of Laenys' personal horse, Erebon. He has shown quite a bit of enjoyment listening to Laenys' music, and has been someone around to share a lot of worries with. He's been given tutoring at the request of Laenys, in addition to a lot of trust. He was gifted a purple and red dragon pendant by Laenys, as an extra thanks for saving his life. Okay, apparently a blank page. There we go. Agatha Flowers, admirable. A friendly, motherly face around court, often aiding how she can be strong enough to manage both Desm and Aaron. Laenys respects her, even if the two are not close. She's certainly been there to help when he's been down or stressed. She took an interest in his music, encouraging him to keep playing, despite her husband's indifference to it. Hale and Caladan, dislike. Despite an absolute closeness in their youth, the lack of contact between the two, and the stories of him becoming a knight for House Peak, has left Laenys in an uncomfortable, not comfortable, position. On one hand, it is his brother he loves. On the other hand, he did not come to the aid of the house, he has not returned, and is unlikely to obey the traditions and honour of the house. Such is a pain to the family's name, despite the respect Laenys has, and while he can never change his fondness he has, all the trust has been lost due to this betrayal. Gregor Ashford, unfriendly. Laenys still fears Gregor deeply for what happened years ago, and still hates him for all of it. Equally, he knows Gregor would take any opportunity to make his life as miserable as possible. The scar he obtained from their first duel, if you could even call it that, still gives him nightmares and occasional pains many years later. There is no sympathy for him, and while he wouldn't go out of his way to hurt him, Laenys wouldn't prevent another from doing so, unless the act was truly vile. That brings me down to little miscellaneous character notes. Laenys has practiced with many kind of instruments. Some he's brought himself, and some that were originally owned by his mother. A harp, for example. He regularly practices with quite a few instruments, normally in the evenings after dinner. His main instruments are the harp, the flute, and the lute. He is a light sleeper who wakes very early, even after late studying. It isn't so much an issue as a mild inconvenience. When stressed, however, he is likely more a blessing, considering he starts having nightmares and was dying at the hands of Gregor Ashford. Laenys has spent a large amount of time looking over the finance and stability of the house, learning about stewardship, likely with some aid from Maester Cole, and has been trying to manage the finances for the last few years, after he started coming out of his shell. His uncle's still doing a bit of it for every now and again. Picture apparently doesn't want to load, which I will just drag that up myself. The Valerian steel sword he carries, Oathsworn, dates back to before the house's founding, given to Laz and Caladan as part of Aegon the Conqueror's invasion, as a reward for his excellent service. It has an inscription on High Valerian, written on the front side atop a red-stained metal embossment. The inscription, "With our hearts wreathed in flames, we serve you with honour." Assuming this was not added later, it's likely the inspiration for the house's motto. The sword, by the way, is this. I hope you can see that on the recording. I hope you can see it at least. If not, I'll edit in post-production. Laenys, quite a lot of Targaryens are, and the Valerians were, is somewhat resilient to fire and heat. This has never been a major issue, though he's come to enjoy exceptionally hot baths that would burn most individuals. He can currently speak the basics of High Valyrian, and wants to learn to read it, and speak more other languages, starting with Low Valyrian and Braavosi, which he plans to learn from Tina and Jonas' characters. He originally started learning out of curiosity of his very unusual traits, developing into a fascination about the Valyrians and their culture. Laenys' name in High Valyrian actually roughly translates to Leader's Eye, which was actually a name I generated. I found the meaning after I already had the name generated. I didn't know the meaning before I'd use it, before I'd use the name. Could have ended badly. Oh well. Laenys is actually quite religious, even if he does not directly believe believe they will directly intervene. Perhaps just once when the house is in peril, a good fortune or two might shine upon them, or perhaps he's just being too naive. Either way, he prays regularly in the small shrine in the upper levels of the keep. Lands the white courser horse named Erevan. A fine horse, he's had quite a few years, though he rides it rarely. He's cared for by Lucas the servant. Then there is the meta information here. And that is the... Wow, that was a lot of talking. I've got a little bit more to do. So that is the main bit of the character. I hope I didn't... Yeah, I just realised there's so many screw-ups in this. Oh well. Also, people have come to watch. Hello, Elephant and Pumpkin. Yes, so that is the base for Laenys' character. I can bring up his sheet, which I will slide across if I can get it off my second monitor. I move you across. There you go. Using the Excel one right now because it feels more comfortable. So this is my character. Sorry, I put the little cut off up there. Shouldn't matter too much. There you go, that works much better actually. So yeah, Laenys is quite the generous character, much like Brian was. A lack of skill points when you're young, so I spent the attributes how I did. Raising quite a few various things around. The main two stats, of course, being, well, one, he's actually got 4 points to in language down here. 3 in the common tongue, giving him the ability to write, and then just a single one in High Valerian, giving him the ability to, well, to speak it. At least the basics. His main stats are will and persuasion. He's got quite a bit of willpower, and even a bonus dice in courage from always efforts in trying to overcome it, though this by no means he can overcome his fear. And his persuasion, he's actually decent. He's actually pretty decent at persuasion. He has a bonus dice in convince and intimidate, of which he actually gets an extra bonus in intimidate due to his Valerian heritage. Maybe people fear the dragons will come back. Well, who knows, right? It'd be kind of cool though. The Dragon Rider. I said he is 15, male, being played by me. Part House Caladan. He has bonus dice in empathy. He has learnt to be able to read other people's emotions quite well, trying to judge if someone's angry and trying to avoid them. He's trained a little bit with the sword, the Oathsworn. He's got somewhat good at it. And as I said, he's been trying to steward the lands, so the stewardship dice I put in. He is mostly built to be a talky character, and that's how I'll be going with him. But fighting will not be on the back seat, as the future possible lord of this house. He needs to be able to be good at everything, or at least, well, not everything, but he must be able to hold his own in both fighting and persuasion, and preferably warfare later, though he has no clue right now on that. Qualities-wise, he is the heir. Well, the effective heir pretender technically, but we are aiming for him to be the heir, so we have bought that as a quality. He has an heirloom, which is of course Oathsworn, the Valerian steel longsword, which he owns, and Blood of Valyria, the heritage trade, which, well, it matches in the whole concept of his character of fate intervening on him more than his own action self, and him having to just react to that. We'll see how that turns out. His drawbacks, though, are these: Craven and Nemesis. Gregor Ashford, of course, being his nemesis. But Craven, in addition to his being his vice, it is a drawback for him. Whenever he enters combat or enters an intrigue, he must roll a courage check at -1 dice. If he fails, until the start, he will until his next turn, we can make the check again. He will take a -1 dice on every check he makes, which is pretty devastating when you consider it. Drops him from 3 dice down to 2 dice, or 2 dice down to 1 dice. He only has 3 dice to make a DC 12 check, which is not an easy task actually. It's not an impossible task to get a DC 12 and 3 dice. It's actually quite possible, especially with the reroll. But as he gets injured or wounded, it becomes very difficult very quickly. A single wound would bring him down to 2 dice. Then getting a 12? That's not easy. In return, admittedly, if he passes the check, he gets a reroll dice on all of these extra. But that is less of a concern, for the main thing is when stress really starts hitting, this will go downhill. In case anyone's curious, he has a variety of weapons on him. He has his dagger, because, a dagger. He has a shield, which which helps make up for the armor penalty he loses when he wears his breastplate. He has the heirloom longsword. You can of course punch people. Don't know why he would, but you could punch people. It's an option. Suppose it grants the offhand bonus for extra point of damage if I want it. And he has a hunting bow, which he's not very good at shooting, but I mean, if he really needs to help or shoot from range, he has a bow. He probably won't be carrying it very often, even while traveling. You can see his intrigue defense is better than his combat defense. Though his combat defense is actually 9 as well, because it doesn't include the shield bonus. Just a 9 armored. And his composure is 12, health is 9. All simple enough. Anything different on this page? House heraldry. It doesn't look like it. A few mannerisms, but nothing particularly too important there. Oh god. Zoom out. There you go. But yeah, so that is my character. I'm not entirely sure how I'm actually going to build him from here. I know I want to invest extra points in languages eventually. I don't know if I want to start with that. I probably won't. Maybe I'll start with like 10 points into learning Low Valerian. That might work. But I'm not entirely sure where I'll actually build from him. It's going to be very much based on how does the story go and what does the story call upon. So if I see us doing a lot of stuff based on combat, for example, I might add more combat-based stuff. If I see a lot more stuff with talking, I might add more talking stuff. We'll see how it kind of goes. The character is designed to be a generalist and kind of flexible. It will kind of flow into whatever position is kind of needed. Though I do plan to try and help Jonas out with the whole persuading area, which he isn't too bad at. I might take some other things later to aid it. And of course I have my 4 destiny points, which I'm going to be using a lot of. Of course saving 1 in case inevitable doom comes, because Manikai is going to doom us. Of course he will, it's Manikai. But anyone would doom us actually if they're DM. It's only right to do. Anyway, that's just a ramble. I don't know if I've got anything else. So, in that case, this is my character, and hopefully we will see him in action soon.